The Ovahimba people are not marginalized, but rather an indigenous peoples who have kept their tradition and culture for centuries. They are dualist kinship of matrilineal and patrilineal systems, and also nomads and a pastoralist group that inhabit the northwestern part of Namibia. The Ovahimba people have indigenous knowledge that is relational, which helps them to conserve nature and their surrounding environment. Their knowledge helps them to adapt to the environment and climate's unpredictability and the droughts that have been hitting them. Their knowledge serves them to be resilient and ecological. The Ovahimba culture is faced with challenges of being lost due to many Ovahimba youth abandoning their traditions and culture for them to fit into the modern world. They no longer wear their traditional attire, and also they are losing a lot of indigenous knowledge in the process because they stay more in towns rather than in the villages. That really causes them to lose their cultural practices rapidly. The Ovahimba people lost a lot of their cattle and small livestock due to drought. That means they have lost their livelihood and income. Cattle to the Ovahimba communities means cultural identity, self-worth, and losing that causes a lot of trauma due to losing some cultural practices that was being bargained with cattle.
Omatokero manene nene geri mo conservancia Epupa konjeverero yokuti no bipuka tuno bipuko binamayo oipuko binamayo binodo otubede mu bikara kinene mu yafero ukara tuno batuta benyinganyigo kuda porobede no kianda porobede ututa waka ututa makurama ukaenda oyo tuta mo kaenda mbi omututa kachiwo kujabi obipuka binamayo mu rubede ndubiripi utedo mario uriri kukuno mario kumathokali ngwali ngukumai kukuno mario mawa rumo kukwa imbi binamayo
Ujiwana hijetu kiwango mahongero kuthira mohoromende ini so kutuhanga katu so kukahongo tutwapeke tuso kuyo kubatera horomende ngahina jibe makutha oruturo libe jimuno siwana nanga rukahonge biwana horomende ini so kutuhanga cho bandu horomende mutuli mwana mbimbi anja kutuka okina chimocho ochicha kwao morubeze binambi tutuno urumbu oungi kinene mwete matu hepo kuhongo unongo bonjeberero yo urumbu kuchihiku chali kotoke lingare malirirehi gatuchebere byo kutikwitu tara panambabe hongirwo munyo we baberwanu kuthiramo mauye peke kongotwe mu bihautombire biponde baberwa ngunda biponde baberwa mikumbio ba hauto bihenao pena ete bene uyanja ohambara kana ko hautongo mena kuje uponde baberwa ndi hindi kiri sana ngune le kitwa hungi wetu kitwaliwo bengine muungi wetu katutenge kuti tukathepo kuti okuje hireto chirukuru kauli kusana ngune etaka tulipo kuje wetse bengine mani matulisa atulise oimba momwethe olive po momiethe kani ekwetheri arwe gatukalise kumunda wa rukoko ena kuja ndaka tujita naho ehitunario naho ngamba uli posia binambio katujiti amana mena kuja katudwa sana kuthira ko horomende kuthira ko siona ko tututwa peke ngatuye tutuhonge omumatunga amatuthu ngako horomendo ini nani kitwa kutwe pango pamwe mundungu hino kuthwa amatu chake twisirepo mundungu ina bemwe mbutuponde wete benine.
So we created the knowledge fair as a new platform for academics, community members and other stakeholders to meet, to have a transdisciplinary dialogue and to exchange knowledge.
If you lack knowledge, you miss any kind of opportunity in life. How to control your own life, how can you do it? And those are kind of things that if you lack of knowledge, you cannot do it. The way how you can manipulate yourself, you can't be able to manipulate yourself, you can't be able to define yourself, you can't be able to use yourself in a way that can improve your life. In fact, therefore, I think it's very useful that every one of us is ought to be provided with sufficiently information in this kind of new world, so that you cannot left that much behind in terms of cope with this kind of new world. here, I mean, like 10 years or 15 years back, I was not aware of what is the use, I mean, how dangerous the paper or plastic on the environment. I was not aware of it. I was not aware of what the causes of chopping down the trees, what the causes of maybe like if there are a lot of livestock on the environment, does them have a kind of effect or not? Either positive or negative, I was not aware of it. 10 years ago then, it was like, I was not aware of like, what is the bad thing about killing wildlife?
So it has been, everything has been merged together into one formal platform for the knowledge exchange. And this is very important that indigenous knowledge also reaches into the formal system of exchanging knowledge, of distributing knowledge. The format of the knowledge fair has been inspired by academic conferences where experts present their findings, by unconferences where people are more interactive, and also by community meetings and community ways of exchanging knowledge.
For the Ovahimba communities in the Epupa Conservancy, most of them do not reside in Epupa village itself, but in the surrounding villages, causing them to travel long distances to access health facilities, schools, and water for human consumption as well as for their livestock.
So the knowledge fair was hosted in Epupa constituency, specifically Okapare village. And in that particular village, there was no infrastructure whatsoever. There was no electricity, there was no telecommunication infrastructure, and even water was lacking. However, having known that, we took that all into planning as we initiated the event, so whereby we were able to now procure external temporary infrastructure such as now generators, electricity, for electricity, and even water tanks and sanitary equipment.
Atuene kujinisa wanyanda kutoa puluwedero lwe popali umuti chokanyanda jitana malama mengi wanyanda umuti mbadheri adheku aukukuta ngombo ndo kukoka no hitopole no ngombo mala dako kana nyenya paka no ngombo murongo mbando julu mala ndamo ngombo murongo kwa mesere ndiapu abeso murongo twa hiya muti majinene ngamba bahi mawline na bini bunjiri miri bolalo mama no kuja hina kumihupire ondundu.
The knowledge fair took place as a platform created for the communities to share the common knowledge they have about their surrounding environment and how they adopt, preserve, and extract their livelihoods from the environment. The students were sharing the research works they carried out in the area and expertise with the communities. Traditional leaders, corporate leaders, and the different community members, people from other conservancies, were sharing their thoughts and knowledge on how they run their institutions. The event was structured in ways where each conservancy present how they run their conservancy affairs.
po unongo mbutwa pewa kudhira musiona ujeri unahepero kujatuye kuhanathana bulwele ndu
obibarero bipukamo kutikwe tumatukiwa naimon monjebero njo siona ituna matukiwa na oyabi tuno ipuka bingapi bikapo tubile tunwe vinwapi ya naona binambe matukana yo kinene outheu kwichangana kuletha osiona ya batero kumana katuhepo kwichangana kuletha ne matungura no bina wiyo akandino okambandi ule matutero munwe uli ohongo mundo kumuhabalife chikulia mwishinyo kulia hongo mundo kuchauli ondi jongule otietero mahunju kuye kulia tuhongo kukakambulo mahunjo benimo kubale siona tu hongo kukambule hunju
andali ena emitindi hajiwa no mbege bijiwa menoro kuja mi he poko janjiwe mitia bihenu juo mutati no muhama no ige sibe njiji to kuja nambano ngatupa hemiti
Ami momiti mbia makamuna momiti byalwe obye mbie hajiwa. Nuno mbia hajiwa kuja vipanga ike mwa kwetu no mbinji kapura beja imbo upanga olive. Imbo upanga pehuli. Imbo upanga muka ndeje dijingundi. Ya okuja miti mbimba kazo bakombunda na mani jimi pura pura mwa bandune. Kimbali ye mupahe omiti.
Yekutuhonga mapatiro ikamera uliri. Olongode kundatu tulando olongode ndo taxi renanto ka atuka nalo mara kuchu kuja mulo so kuliungulisa bi mondo ndo bipuka po mondo ndo ukuti okuja kitu yikumuno mahongerongo kitu akautu kumuno kuja Epupa ondo nai kinene papa katungulisa iye mbutungulisa even buka mara kinene cyunongode ko bandu ferara jimbe hajanga bene no kubeya mamena kuja mwabali akithiri peke peke no mundu kiri kukulengo hajanga winambwe ulikota lumwe kombundo medeje kikwetera akapaturongoze yenjo kimukahitisa muivini bukaye yanje kapene jina majipanjara so tunokana kutulatu hanganga kwa gatherango ngakukutukanga kakamerango ukanango chinena kana hebero mukuti kana hebero mena kuchete kumbechero kana hebero obakibiro mukuti obandu bekala mungengedera kuno abalo mundu kujipuka uliri mundepesa ondo majo kuja kimbe mwesana hii makala pata yeko patiro mongorongo tunusemba okumuno muno nokula pata tunusemba okukambula.
Sharing of knowledge among the Ovahimba community is part of their cultural norms, although it is not done in formalized fashions like the knowledge fair. Therefore, the knowledge fair was an eye-opener to the communities, showing them that they are able to host such events to share their knowledge with other communities.
Oba utokuhongo bini kuja kuti musiwana tuhongwane mbabe hembe yapo mbahama kuti musiwana tuhongwane no binambye biwa owa bi beno hange nene opumailirie ko kuja bi osiona kaitoku tufya pondo mbapwetu etamba tusokukaenda pa mino siona ngahino ndo dombura kaninda kuda peno omasa no masoreto beno hange jinene opumedo kutono njongo na honde jibeno hange.
So the members were from we invited from Marine Flus, from Orupembe, from Epupa and Okangwati. We tried to also invite the community members from Angola, but they couldn't come because of COVID. So, so the idea was for them to come together to one central place. So there were a couple of activities that we had in mind for them to actually demonstrate. For example, we talked about, there were sessions about a community hub. There were sessions about plants. We had some plant activities. We had some drone activities. We also talked about a portal that is also going to be deployed and so on. And also during this activity, there were also powerful sessions where each community member had to talk about how best their community has achieved and also in relation to the project. And within this project, we had a lot of different disciplines from natural resources, agriculture, and I come from the technical aspect, the computer science aspect. Our discipline, the computer science discipline, was very critical for this project, as we know that the future that we are heading to is tech-based. The community members can also understand where the future is heading to. So that's and also for us to also educate the community members on how best technology can also help them to do some of the activities that they're currently performing manually.
So we had various individuals from different backgrounds during the event, and having that, it was quite important that we cater for everyone to ensure that no one is left out. And seeing that the majority were Ovaherero speaking individuals, as the Ovahimba were the majority at the event, we ensured that first priority was with them to understand what they are being told, and then vice versa for equally other individuals who do not speak Oshirero to understand what the locals are saying. We had translators who were able to assist specifically just around translating from Oshiherero to English and vice versa.
we had a breakaway session of each student sharing their research with each conservancy, especially those teams they were working together with on data collection. After each breakaway session, we had presentations from the session. The breakaway sessions covered different topics: botanic plants, intestines reading, camera traps, drones, and the teams and communities present had discussions and questions around the topic presented.
So they would spend 2, 3, 4 days in the field together with the community, go for ethnobotanical walks if it's about the plants, or doing game counts if it's the application for the wildlife. Then our students would go along on game counts and would practice whatever the community would practice. And based on that, they then designed together some technologies that is fit for the field. For example, there would be no writing in English, it could be audio recordings, and there's a lot of features that were implemented in order to facilitate the data collection with the community.
There was a session for livestock slaughtering, meals time and break time, and during that week we had a gala dinner with traditional dances. The discussions were around the effects of climate change and indigenous knowledge mitigations process used by each conservancy or traditional leader, and the challenges they faced and their amicable solutions.
Obina munyo byuhara bikoka ulirenga ekitwa ipulwanda mbopeno bina byamanuka byakoka byatonjara mena lumbula njihiri kuli
orukondo lwetu karuna lonjira oipuka kaisaro kubarwa mena kuja katuna lonjira bamabariro oipuka mumbule hezo kwa oipuka tiona che yanai tomuno kambatiro ngauya tunobi kamera abyetu ihambo ndatu tuwaisa mosiona bitu twapo tubede okubaro bipuka no bikamera mbio no hobi kubatera ko kujabi okitandi cyo bandu kumaye ko depo bipuka mu rukondole obengi biri modo ali ade no munu no hochiwa otoku okulituna ko kuchebera omatokero walwe kondondo njio kunana okutwande nguko conservation ini katuna biungulisiwa mbiri byo ko conservation konjeberero biungulisiwa mehebi ochinajihe jihepa obina bima bihitathana no byungula mapayo okuje mungule maliro mukutuke mu byungula obyungulisa mehe katana byungulisi wauli atanduli mutuli tungula uliti mauliti.
This was a learning curve for researchers and conservancies that participated in this event. The communities were learning more from their peers. Learning from their peers on how to mitigate certain challenges was one of the outstanding outcomes from the events.
Ami ngandanje yenjibo unongo. Bali no unongo utiti. Chamba inju edira ko unongo ungina. Nunu kwa the mundu lumwe jana kunjipuro okina jinji. Ediri boka kandake muri wakakana ko libengo pe andem. Mara nai unongo benjiba. Jenu kwa the mundu lu humenda ngana ngwa dhupya uhe. Manaja nene kunjipuro miti bine bingapi po abihe mu utawa njuhungiro miti bya hinda mana po njuhungiro mba nja kaninja hinda mana.
And so what we have seen is that the women are also quite strong in terms of the usage of the technology. So there is, because it's new, there is no practices. And so, so I think what is interesting is that yes, they have their tradition and they have like seating arrangements, talking arrangements, cooking. So there's a whole set of practices that are still alive. But then also I think the interesting part is when, for example, technology comes in, which is a new feature which hasn't been part of tradition, then new rules are negotiated. I think that's the whole interesting part. So women and men have been equally using the technology and have also not been offended by being taught by women. So we haven't experienced any of those gender issues around technology and the knowledge sharing.
Wakwetu no hojimotana wako mundambo wao Oveno ino inahepero no mbiwe samwetemu kimuno miti peke mbirimu omwana mbubi panga mbubi batelo mikise kwa bandu ugonyo kiri unahepero kinene kwa bakwetu no bamuno unahepero kuthira mwete tetwa muno unahepero no kuthira muo
sio no mona gotumba tenga mo etatu ya kali abasene na kagwetumba maraja kami una ngomo baba na mbali mija bahia mo mutima numbali jana ha ndaga mipewa kama hina ngoke na gwetu ejo ho unongo peke bumi anje ndunga ndo mijo na goja ikimeji majimba thembi mo mutima po mu rubina hi mene no kata kama hina ho unongo peke ya bahia mo mutima ndu amia ngo kuli hangera ka mara kama hina nga hinako ajetemba ongulu miti bahia mo mutima kwa ibangere
o kintu kiwaje mbere ho mo kintu kitenga kama hakaeneno ngoku ya pam ukuyatwa pamwenga o kintu kiwikitenga uli mena okucho mahakaeneno abandu bene nokupasa nondunge no matu hatu ngirembo Epupa mali chavi kangwati make chavi okyo rupembe malu chavi tematu chavi okumono mbwatu hangasana okuja kumunungu haungulu kinamo ko sevenzi o mwene no kulihanga kuja ngwali akwitu bakawanja nai.
We've deployed some applications that they are using in order for them to record their activities when they are in the field and so on, and they've actually seen that it's a potential opportunity for them to use this kind of devices, and because it's for them what they've also realized is that is with this kind of technology they can it's faster, because before what they've been using manual recordings of their activities. They do video recordings, and for them it's also easier to share with others. And also for evidence purposes, they've also seen that others can also see that it is really happening, especially if they encounter critical cases in human-wildlife conflict in their conservancies.
Tukunjira kuja winambi chitupula mwena hii tuwango kuja tutana ulembazo yenu yetunja waherero okutana ula mwa machangwa nukuchiwo miti yechiherero nukuchiwo mbadha ihe yechiherero mu paranga wa yepo yanda obujo bina bitukupulira limema twango kuja tungule pamwe utuhongeze tukuhonge tatukuhonga kama hina obejenene mutu hongo miti katu inu mutu hongo mbadhu hakatu mbadhu no ho kuja ihapanjala twango kuja tuonge mbadhu ya tukatwemo za mahina ya namana kama hina ngono hamadu kuja tu obe uhonge bandu ogire jimbere hongo binamimbi tungura obino biwa okuyalisiwa kubiwana okuja biungule ogire jimbere hongo okuja mbadhu yungule nji bilio chiherero ya nunoho itue mu machangwa okuja izubake komunda wihenguli kombunda ngumaka kule akabaza mbadhu pi ya wandu baje nje ndera mbali mundu uli ngunje hena kujiwa kuja matungura iki ame jana ninga hino banduli amuta mwana mwamuli anga baenda nu je nyanga hena nduli okuli anga imwa komba baenda oziana maye tu waji nene maye tu wako mahongero bandu ya patululo munda uhezo ndungi bandu jima byamba behe kolongana amba jokuja ojinahi okiyame amahongero ngumaekame pongumayama.
The Knowledge Fair TUNAST is a platform allowing the university to showcase research to the communities and to get feedback from an indigenous knowledge perspective, and anticipate that digital tools and data presentations will create co-designed environments with stakeholders and provide a shared platform facilitating a transdisciplinary dialogue and decision-making to establish methods of joint data collection. The indigenous knowledge has been passed down from one generation to another orally, which faces challenges in our modern times simply because the youth who are supposed to embody this knowledge spend much time in towns rather than in the villages. This creates a vacuum in knowledge transfer. Hence, it is important to promote, protect, and preserve this indigenous knowledge and to do what is required for this knowledge to be archived.
Okay, you see, when we're talking about co-design, we are talking about firstly co-designing the design ideas. For example, we collect requirements based on what the community said. For example, I remember we were in Marine Flus, so we sat with community members, the game guards, around, under 3, and then we wanted to develop, when we were developing the war app that was developed by CRES. And what we did is we sat around together, the community members, the researchers, we sat, and then we asked them around how they basically do their manual collection of data, especially when they are doing when they are working in the fields. So the researchers and the community members, they sit together with a concept, and then a discussion. Like, for example, a topic of design is triggered out, and then through that process, the community members give out their design constructs and concepts, and based on that, the researchers, they document this, and then a prototype is developed based on these design concepts that have been mentioned by the community members with the researchers in one focus group discussion.
I think our government and our kind of leadership, they must create very proper awareness toward the communities whom they know nothing up to now about those kind of things. The importance of the trees, the importance of the wildlife, the importance of the global warming, all these that are associated with those kind of things. What I think is that to call upon our government sector and the non-NGO to be in partner so that they can providing education that can let everyone whom know nothing up to that level to be equipped with this kind of knowledge. Yes, Siona project, it does a nice job, and I very much appreciated of that. From the bottom of my heart, you see, in this world, we should have to come here. It's very nice that Siona project come here, teach and gather information from the ground here. By doing that, I think they can developing that kind of integration between those who know nothing, so that they can bring them on the ground, so that they can come on the kind of environment where they can teach each other and they can influence one another in a way that we can be at the same level. Yeah, because I think if they come here, they use these people as the main sources for information. So it's very important that they should come here asking, doing research and whatever kind of thing, the means they are trying to do. Because they are tackling this community so that they can hear many more information from them, and they can use that kind of information to provide a kind of ground that will be useful for every one of us and for the entire country.
The knowledge fair was an eye-opener for the local communities. First, it indicated to them that they are able to have an exchange program among themselves to share their knowledge. Secondly, these platforms create an environment where the communities can express their views and opinions to relevant stakeholders. The fairs educate the Obahimba communities in attendance to promote, protect, and preserve their knowledge and safeguard it.
A language is a way that we communicate, and the way we communicate builds down on how we build knowledge. And especially if you can communicate in your mother language, the language that you are comfortable with, the language that you dream in, the language that you daydream, you think about intuitively. I mean, people always say that music is a universal language, but I would like to introduce that technology is the new universal language. Why would I say that? At times we hear that technology is an enabler. And what does it mean? It actually enables us to do the daily operations these days. We are talking about these days about Internet of Things.
The Knowledge Fair is an event where communities exchange their knowledge, experiences, and opinions on how to conserve and run their affairs. The various conservancy guards and committees have learned a lot from other committees, especially from Oshinungwa Conservancy, that has been a success story in running their conservancy. The communities have a lot in common, such as the struggle to use technologies, and hearing from their peers how they overcome challenges in handling camera traps and cell phones was really enriching.
So I think where we are moving to now, the era of technology, people are talking about the fourth industrial revolution. So it's an era where we really want to intelligently communicate with machines and human beings and processes. So this is the era that we are in, the fourth industrial revolution. And then we have noticed that empathy and to really bring in technologies that are human-centric, bringing the indigenous languages into the technology construction. So it's very interesting to see the interplay of the indigenous languages and of technologies. Yes, Siona really provided that platform to do this type of project. You need funding, and the European Union really did a wonderful job on that.
The technologies the Ovahimba people can use to improve their livelihoods includes setting up network towers across their terrain and also community hubs that will help them with knowledge sharing and will be a place of learning. The fair brought to the communities a learning platform to exchange knowledge. The Siona project brought the camera traps, drones, tablets and apps for bookkeeping programs for the game guards. The Siona project has proposed to set up a community hub in 2 conservancies.
We have seen at times our indigenous knowledge has been seen as less because it's not written and it is not globally accessible to everyone. When we have these type of initiatives like the Knowledge Fair, this is a testimony where we see the communities bringing their knowledge to be known to the outside world. What we are striving for is to ensure that the communities are also equal educators. They are also professors. I mean, that knowledge, we can send our learners to the field, or they can come to our classrooms and also give classes, because they are qualified in their own domain, as the same way we are qualified in our own domains. Although we attain some certification, they don't, but they are testimony from, if you go around in the community, if you ask who can tell me about Omitandu, for example, they will know who's that expert. Why? Because the expert has been showing that knowledge through a lot of events. So the same way, that is already authentic. So we also need to credit and give them recognition that these are knowledge holders that should be also celebrated. So that's what we are moving now for NAST, to really ensure that our communities are part of our education system. Our indigenous knowledge is so equally important in our education system.
There were activities that took place before the Knowledge Fair, which involved different research work carried out by the students and their professor, as well as data collections and workshops held on different occasions. We had trips to those villages on several occasions to engage with the community, learning from them and them learning from us. There were co-designing activities on some occasions and some cultural dances too. There were meetings with the organizing team to organize themselves and invite the relevant people to the events.
So we have been thinking about quite a lot of different models in terms of how to link the university to the communities, because the communities are also knowledge producers just like the university, which are different. But replicating a university in that setup would actually destroy what we can learn from the communities, because the communities have their own way of transferring knowledge from which we can actually learn. And so the idea would be to have students be, for example, half at the university and then go out in the field and be confronted with different ways of seeing the world, different ways of learning. And that would then expand the entire, the global learning system if we would, if we actually take certain traits that they have developed over generations.
In our own research, that at times we underestimate the deployment of technologies. One would just think like, okay, I've given this work with communities, we have co-designed the application, we have given them the tablet, fine. But then you see that just to charge that tablet, they need to walk miles to just go charge, or they need to walk a distance just to get coverage to make a call. So, and we have been advocating for the industry to come on board to really assist the communities, because we can't talk about fourth industrial revolution if there is no internet access to start with. How do you talk about Internet of Things if there is no internet? How do you talk about innovation if the environment is not conducive for innovation? So we really make call on industries, and we have seen a move even with this Siona project. We have set up community hubs that allows the community to come to those internet hubs and then communicate with the outside world. So we are making some good progressive steps to really better life of the communities, and most importantly is the knowledge empowerment.
The information gathered through the Siona project was documented through research, thesis, and publications. There is also this documentary about the fair and other information that will be documented on the repository websites. Hearing from Indigenous students at a knowledge fair who advocate for shifting perspectives which, according to them, reveal major deficiencies in education, research and technology caused by a systemic exclusion and active destruction of Indigenous knowledge systems.
So different ways of learning are similar to what we do in the field. And so the idea would be they are like a learning hub or a knowledge hub outside of the university, and then we have students and colleagues and international guests that move between those worlds to get the best of all of them. So those are the models we are kind of thinking of.
Therefore, there is a clear tension between modern knowledge systems and Indigenous knowledge systems, which clearly do not engage Indigenous people in the design of learning tools to encompass not only Indigenous content, but also underlying epithet.
For one, of course, we decided that it will be an annual event because it was so successful. So there's a set of communities already volunteered to host the next one. We are also trying to expand it. So what I want to say is that our long-term dream or plan is to connect Indigenous people across the globe, so that the next Indigenous knowledge fair that we would hold next year, we would actually already invite Malaysian Indigenous people and Samis from Scandinavia and natives, Native Americans, so that they can actually work together and see how to integrate or how to actually make Indigenous knowledge also a mainstream knowledge system.
The knowledge fair was one of the most powerful sessions that I've ever attended, because it connected a lot of communities together. Most of the community members, they've never seen each other there. It was their first time to get together to share whatever they do, to see each other and so on. So that group dynamics was very, very critical. Yeah, and so one thing that I've learned from this is, for example, like I mentioned, is the group dynamics. What I've learned is that people really need to work together in order for them to advance in whatever they need to solve. And based on that, you could see the group dynamics that some of the communities were much stronger than the other communities, especially in relation to what they've learned through this project. The one thing that I would advise or think that people should can learn or better is for them to be able to connect further. For example, it would be nice if, for example, the ones that learned more through this knowledge fair can also teach others, so that at the end of the day, all the communities can benefit well throughout this process.
You could see the sadness in the communities when we are telling them that the project is coming towards an end, and they were thinking on how can we also help you to get that grant? How can the communities help us to achieve more grants so that we can empower more communities. So I think we are moving in that direction now.
Ninyi mufuku wangu nunju hinu wangu wija ije yonga mombola nyina ikahama nyimuhepa wija umwele wahejima yimo benjo wakulundu umwele wahejima ya ufuku mwemwe kuhama ikuhongo apo ayikupula twakire bibunyina nandi ngujinene kwa mihepa na wija.
You know, you always go to a fair, trade fair, you know, there's always a fair. I mean, but this is a knowledge fair. We are selling knowledge, we are embracing knowledge, we are sharing knowledge. So this is something very, very powerful. Why it was so interesting is because we took it from the normal city life and we want to bring professors also into the communities. We are changing the perspective. It used to be people always coming to the cities.
However, the Namibia University of Science and Technology, NUST, and the communities work together on the Siona project to share knowledge on how to realize sustainable ecosystem management by bringing together community members, researchers, park managers, rangers, government departments, and non-governmental organizations in a common space, in this case, the Knowledge Fair.
Ojina jiguda ondungeye wale wana imwe isa kumugwenu okuhongwa linda lye kasiko lemba pwanganda chiwa penduka pwanganda uhongo nanyanda kalisena nanyanda jaerana nanyanda mbimbana ochina jihejiwa chiza kuhongo kapena mundu ngukwadwa uline hi oguli ungulile jina
tasiona ya utwa aipe ombatero njanda atutopona osiona ngiriona munyo tukale no monguliro wakumwe nani harukuluma tukamuna mbatero yale no kupitia osiona eterume tuchie Epupa conservancy matubanga mashekere matubanga libe mabe kunguli kinaje libe kamalia kukulisa andu tunako cha conservancy oyo andu munga behinge kodago yemise okibike chereto hagane polibe be kuyanje mbatero nje mena kwichabi ngundatu ja muno mahongero ngakutu hongo banene etenoho bipangiro kibyeya twauto kudako kukungulisa binambye mukuti ombire na hepero twauto kuja ipo amigo poklinika pepo ope opera imwe mbapa uli etam opera mbapa ochuro opera mbapa opehuli opera abagaji beri oye opera imwe ipanga biso murongo uya mabe kulesere kujabi obipangero omitika bimu oyo ngana mbano ikupanga uye po meto kianya ndiripo pues ama yo opera hizo kupanga olive pues akaimo mo chipangero mo kutikubiri etetwaiza kombango twa popo bipangero siona we kupendulo mehwetu ya mbae pues nene mbumuno unongo obino alibe mo kutino ngwana mbano jinene imala koshi kamu jitu hongo ongunda amu jamatu hongo siona nangolende no mukotoro oulipula kwete kuja so nangoli tojitu uyo wajitwala ko mukutire tuhuya tulimo kutire to habere kwa tulipanga rukuru uyo siona kwetombatero uliri siona gaikale na uliri lo conservancy ngade batere byo siona uya tukanyigenda ko mulungu ngando mbatira lejeya amuja na to muno batiro ulire ngatuka ndegenda ko mulungu
bautira mokuhongwa conservancy njiye njivi kamene he hindinga siona iye ikilino conservancy bahongo banganda peke no nganda wakaya onje yenjira ngisa kinene kunjipitisa mehi eiko South Africa kaza ko South Africa eiko Zimbabwe chanjema inji konjiso njeberero kuti njika no mario no hongo bina mario mo mehi kutuna gino birongo kiba munjirisira nai muno mu rukondwandu bikango no bindingwe no minyandi okuhongo tututwa peke na.
During the event, the Ovahimba communities had vigorous engagements with the professor and the event organizers, requesting that the knowledge fairs become an annual event in the Kunene region. The request came with suggestions that the event should be annual but rotate in different villages or communities for each community to host their fairs. That indicates the interest of this society in what they have received through the fairs and the impact it has on the communities.
So we have been working on this digitalization of indigenous knowledge since 2008 actually. And at that point, the government recognized that it's really important. So that's also when the government started looking at how can it be commercialized, but we need to digitalize.
We also want the professors, the the people from the Western world to also come to the communities and learn from the communities from their ground. So this is something that was really interesting, and we can always have this rotating. The next time we can have it in the cities and the communities comes to the city. So I think this is something that was quite exciting for the communities. And also to see them organizing the event by themselves with a little assistance from our side. So to organize such a big event, they are learning quite a lot on logistics.
Ami muthiona obandu uthiona miwithe mbuluka behe imbambu twaine no kuhama pamwe ukuhama thanu unongo pamwe hina kuthemba prof heka mimuthe mbuluka kinene menalo kucha unji pombango no hikime kimi mupulipuliro po kimi njihongo uyanja mbango ihenja enene hina kuthemba umutengwa kapwire rumwe kimatu enene kuhakana ngali ekiri kuchumwisengo kimacha matuya umundu ngunji pomba ngukinene ngunji pomba thakuja minjungule hina kuthemba kresa hina kuthemba omutengwa pita noho na himulwethe ndungu tuhiri pamwe ngutu aine kukala pamwe kunjihongo uhungano no mepa yo conservancy mutwali atufe kuchanga hina matue kuhana thanu unongo ochako mahongero ngutu kana ona hingu hiri popwetemba hina kumwethemba kinene hina kuthemba omutengwa Sebastiana hina kumuthemba kinene umulumendu womuletima nungwa thwero bandu kinene nguma enene kukuhongo kino hathimbi hina kuthemba alumendu mboto hina kuthemba umutengwa kolena no kolena mwa kimuthanduliri umukukutu kinene nguyanjo mbango noho umutando muwano nguno mbango komundu auhe hina kubethemba alumendu bihe mbeanjo unongo mbuli wo ocha kwetenahi mbacho ngundi mbale nunanga hino mauka kuimbete mbutu yeteru unongo mbu